Happy May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Well, today's May the 4th. You're not going to see this on the 4th. This is going to go up on May the 6th. So happy May the 4th, 2 days ago for you. But today I'm rocking the Baby Yoda. Yeah, I know his name is Grogu. It's Baby Yoda. Hey guys, it's Sarah, and today we are going to wrap up all the things that I read in April. Now, April was interesting because I was in a slump for a good, solid, probably 2 weeks of April. I just did not want to pick up anything, and there were quite a few days that I didn't. I took a little bit of a break, just needed to not worry about it, and yeah, and so I did that. Happy to say I'm out of it, and that's good, but I did end up reading 7 books. So even in the middle of a slump, that's pretty good. When I was starting to come out of it, I was just reading nonstop. So I kind of got through things pretty quickly towards the end of the month. So I feel like I kind of made up for a little bit of time there, but I did read 7 books. For the most part, I really liked everything that I read. So that's good. Okay, so I'm going to start by kind of glossing over 2 of the books that I read. And I have already talked about these because they were my 5-star predictions. So I've already done a wrap up of these. But that is The 10,000 Doors of January. This is by Alex E. Harrow. This one was a 3-star for me, mainly because I listened to it on audio and I'm not good with fantasy on audio, and this taught me that lesson. I still feel like the story line was really, really great. I just feel like the audio caused me to miss a lot of details, so I wasn't able to fully follow it, which is my fault. So I am going to hang on to this. I would like to reread it someday with my eyeballs and hopefully get more enjoyment out of it. So there's that one. And then I also did read Still Life by Louise Penny, which is the first book in her Armand Gamache mystery detective series. I thought this was okay. Another one that I listened to, the audiobook was fine, but I replaced one of my 5-star predictions with this one because I needed something that fit the prompt to read a book that I heard about on a podcast. And I had wanted to start this series, and I have heard from almost everybody that the first, couple of books in this series are not the best, but then it gets really, really, really good. And everyone's encouraging me, keep going. I will. I promise. I promise I will keep going with the series. Don't worry. But this one was a 3-star as well. Just okay. It was fine. Yeah, but that's how my 5-star predictions ended. So if you want more details about exactly how I felt and why in both of these, then I will leave my 5-star prediction wrap up down below. Okay, and then I started feeling a little bit slumpy. I was like, I just need to pick up something kind of brainless. Just light and fun and brainless. And I had heard about this book on Cass's channel. It's called What Cass Read. I will leave her link down below. She talked about this book and it was on Kindle Unlimited. It is a romance. And I was like, you know what? I want to read that. And so I downloaded it that same day that I watched her video. And then after that, and while I was reading it, everybody was talking about it. I'm like, really? Really? No one said a word before this, and now everyone's talking about it, including like it's featured at work. People at work are talking about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, what's going on? So this is Flawless by Elsie Silver. I don't even think I said that yet. Sorry. And it is the first book in a series. So it's called like a small town romance. That's kind of a trope in the romance genre. And we are following a man who is a bull rider. That is his profession. He's like a famous award-winning, wins all the championships bull rider. And his love story with someone that works for his agent's office. And she kind of gets assigned to babysit him. He needs it. He has a reputation and he's got to clean it up. So she's assigned to kind of help him with that transition, and things go from there. I loved it. I flew through it. It was so much fun. The spice, you guys. It is very, very spicy. You are not only in the bedroom, you're practically in the bed with them. So just know that going in, if you don't like that kind of stuff. And there was a bit of it, but that was just really what I was in the mood for. And I thought it was great. So I loved the banter between those 2 characters as well, because this is definitely kind of a hate to love as well. They do not get along in the beginning. And yeah, it was great. So I loved it. I definitely plan to read the rest of the series. I'm just going to get them on Kindle Unlimited. But I gave it 5 stars. Okay, the next one that I read is a book that I buddy read with April, and we are now talking on a daily basis. So, hi, April. We ended up reading The Attic Child by Lola J together. This is a book that was sent to me from Amy. Thank you so much, Amy. And I loved this. I did listen to this one on audio as well because I had heard that the audio was really good. It has 2 different narrators. We are following 2 different timelines as well, and the narration for both were just great. So we are following a woman living in London, and she is finding out things about her family because she's going like through her mother's stuff. Her mother had passed away, and so they're going through all this stuff and family and all that, and she's finding some things that she has questions about. And she starts doing research and tracking things down. And then we are also following the early 1900s timeline where we are finding out how the things that she's finding in her house are tying into the past and where they come from and the origin. And we're following a young boy who is brought over to England from Africa, and he is living with this white man and kind of how all that started. Okay, so all of it is tied to this attic in this one house. I'll say that. There was so much more to this than I was expecting, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. The characters were so good. I love how everything tied together. And you really, really felt for both of the characters and what they were going through. And I loved both timelines. I'm like, which one do I like the most? I liked both of them. I really did. And the past timeline was definitely harder to read because of the time period. And obviously there's going to be a lot of racism in here. And the way that they treated this young boy was just, it was beyond ignorant. I'll just say that. Like, wow. There is definitely abuse in here. So just be aware of that going in. There's definitely abuse. And I don't know. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was beautifully told. The writing was so good. The characters were so good. And we read through this pretty quickly. And this is a big book. This is not a short book, guys, but we both read through it really, really quickly. Just couldn't put it down. It read quick. It wasn't overcomplicated. And we both loved it. So I gave this one 5 stars, and I'm going to hang on to this one. Okay, the next one that I read was The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. Okay, I read this on my Kindle because I had an early copy from NetGalley. This was on my most anticipated releases of the year, so I checked one of those boxes, which was nice. And I was reading this in the middle of my slump, but it was the only book that was keeping my attention during that time. It got to a point where I put everything else down and I only focused on that one because that was the only one that I was really interested in keeping up on and reading. So when I was reading, that's what I was reading. I loved it. I know that it hasn't been for everybody. I know it's very polarizing. People either love it or hate it. I loved it. And I think the reason I loved it is because it's exactly what I needed at the time. I needed something that was just over the top and ridiculous and unbelievable and what in the world is going on. And that's exactly what this book was. And I loved it for that. And I could easily see if I wasn't in the mood for that, or if that wasn't going to work for me, that I would have been like, really? So I get it. I do get it. I get the criticism. I think it's a book that like you just need to pick it up at the right time. But I ended up really enjoying it. So this follows a woman who is an author, but she's in a major writing slump, like years writing slump. So she's really struggling. She's also dealing with running into her former best friend. They had a really big falling out. You kind of get little hints of that as they're running into each other randomly. And it's something that's affected her for a really long time. So seeing her again is a little bit traumatic for her. And she ends up winning a coveted spot in a writing retreat situation. So this very famous author who's very prolific and is really acclaimed is hosting female authors in her home to have a writing retreat. And so the group of winners, there's 5 of them, I believe, end up going to her house and having this writing retreat. And the very first night that they are all there, they find out that they're in for a lot more than they were expecting. So just a little bit of a twist, like, and okay, all right, that's a thing. However, the longer that they're there and the more they get to know this author, they realize how strange she's acting, and just little things that are not super explainable are starting to happen. And so everyone's kind of trying to figure out what's going on in this house with this woman, things that are really hard to explain away, and they're starting to question if they are safe. So I'm going to say that. And I really enjoyed it. I was not expecting anything that was happening. I really wasn't. And I thought it was great. So I'm just going to say that because I don't want to spoil anything. One thing I didn't love is that they are writing along the way, and you are getting excerpts from our main character's book that she's writing. That tended to take me out of the story. So I didn't enjoy reading her book that she was writing to the point where I was kind of just skimming over it. Because it just took me out of what was happening like at the house, and I wanted to just be at the house. So I did give it 4 stars, but I really enjoyed it. And like I said, it's exactly what I needed at the time that I needed it. Okay, the next one that I picked up is one that I picked for my book haul revisit that I was so excited about, and that is Elusive by Emily Lloyd Jones. And I loved this one too, you guys. I really, really enjoyed this one. I listened to it on audio, and it was just, I was compulsively listening to it. I listened to it really, really quickly. It is very fast paced. We are following a group of teenagers who are living their lives of crime. They're criminals, and they know that they're criminals, and they're doing it on purpose because they have superpowers, and they acquired these superpowers because of a global pandemic that happened. To tell you, reading this now, after the global pandemic that we are still dealing with, was fantastic. So I'm really glad I read it now, and kind of seeing, like, being comparing things that were happening in here to things that were happening, in our lives. It was really interesting, and just, it made me kind of go, oh man, like, can you imagine if something like that happened? So yeah, it was very, very good. So you're seeing them, kind of carrying out some of their crime sprees, the people that they are coming in contact with, and some realizations of what's actually going on behind the scenes that they didn't know, and things like that. And so you kind of see them going through all that. I loved it. I am going to continue. There is a sequel. It's a duology, so I already have that one ordered, and it's on the way to me right now. So I'm going to read that, and then there is a novella in between. So I've already have that one out from the library. So I'm going to finish this little duology here for sure. But I have really enjoyed everything I've read from Emily Lloyd Jones, and I plan to continue reading her books because they're just very entertaining. They're young adult, they're quick to get through, and I just really enjoy my time reading them. And I gave this one 4 stars. Okay. And then my last book, I finished on May 1st, so I'm counting it for April. But I picked up Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. Another one of my most anticipated books for the entire year because I loved Part of Your World, and this one follows a character from that book. And you do see the characters from Part of Your World in here as well, so that's good. Okay, this one is following Bree. She is an ER doctor, and she is dealing with a new coworker that has just started. So another ER doctor, they're kind of on even planes here as far as where they are in their careers and positions and stuff. So he comes in because he transferred from another hospital. So she's, working with a new doctor now. And they do not get along. Bree is dealing with a lot in her life. She is dealing with the aftermath of a divorce that was very messy and really just put her in a bad place as far as men go. And her brother has some medical issues that are happening as well. So she's kind of helping be a little bit of a caregiver for him. And so she's just dealing with a lot. And then we're following Jacob, who is the new guy. And he's dealing with a lot too, because he is dealing with a breakup that he's not quite over yet and having a hard time dealing with that. And he is dealing with anxiety. He has social anxiety, which I thought was represented in here wonderfully. I have dealt with some anxiety in my life, not necessarily social, but different types of anxiety. And I feel like she got that in here really well. And you see it from his perspective. So that was good. So they end up in a fake dating situation. Just some things are happening, and Jacob really needs to, he needs a girlfriend or the appearance of a girlfriend. He doesn't really want one, but he needs the appearance to have one for different reasons. And so Bree agrees to do this for him. And so you see them fake dating, and just kind of see where it goes from there. So I love that we're getting the perspective from both of them, because you're seeing what's happening on either side of things, because obviously they are starting to grow feelings for each other, and you see that happening and all that. So, okay, that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to give too much away, because a lot happens in here that I was not expecting, which was really good. Okay, this might be a tiny bit spoilery. So if you want absolutely zero any information about this book, like skip ahead, skip ahead. But I'm going to go into a little bit of like, there was one thing that I didn't like about this book, and I need to be able to tell you why I knocked off a star, but I can't do that without like giving away just like the way that it was written. So, but if you want to avoid any and all spoilers, just skip ahead a little bit. Okay. One thing that made me knock a star off, because this was a 4-star read. The one thing was that this drug out. It drug out a long time of the, I'm not even going to say miscommunication. I'm going to say non-communication between the two. And it was definitely one of those things where, you know, one conversation can fix all your problems. It was one of those things. So it wasn't miscommunication. They weren't lying to each other. They weren't, you know, like keeping things from each other on purpose. They weren't doing that kind of thing. They just weren't talking. They weren't talking about their true feelings, because they were making assumptions about how the other person felt. That's what it was. And it was just like, okay. So by a certain point in the book, it just felt really old. And I was starting to predict like, oh, and he's going to assume this. Yep, there it is. And she's going to assume this. Yep, there it is. So that's why I knocked a star off, because I felt like, come on, like you are both grown adults. You can have a conversation. Let's go. But everything else was so good. So it was hard to knock a star off, because I wanted so badly to give this a 5, but that really did kind of make me roll my eyes a little bit. So I gave it a 4. 4.5. Let's 4.5 it. Yeah. But yeah, but I do love Abby. I still am going to be on a mission to read all of her books, and anything that this woman writes, I will pick up and read. So, the humor was fantastic. There's a scene in here. You all know what it is. Every single one of you knows what it is. There's a scene in here that just had me laughing to the point where I was trying to laugh quietly because my husband was asleep and I was afraid I was going to wake him up. You all know exactly what it is too. It was fantastic. So, all right. And that was my last one. Okay, guys, those were the 7 books that I read in April. Pretty good for being in the middle of a reading slump, definitely. But when I started getting my mojo back, it was with a vengeance, and I just could not stop reading. So that was good. Yeah, let me know down below if you read any of these. Let me know your thoughts, and let me know what you guys read in the month of April. I'm interested, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye.